Hi, welcome to Coffee and Closers. I'm Nikolai Bedore, and I want to personally invite you to join me and one of today's top performing sales stars for a cup of coffee and authentic conversation. And our collective goal is that you will walk away with tangible knowledge that you can apply to your sales efforts today. Are you ready? Grab a cup, fill it up, and let's get into another episode of Coffee and Closers. Hey everybody, welcome to Coffee and Closers. I'm your host, Nikolai Bedore, and today we are going to learn from a real life Titan. I'm so excited. This is a huge treat for myself and for you, but there is very few people on the planet Earth that have mastered leadership, sales and marketing culture, so on and so forth than Darin Lynch. So here's who you're going to hear from. Like I said, my name is Nikolai Bedore. I'm the co-founder and host of Coffee and Closers, and also the co-founder of Closers Media. I carried a bag for a very, very long time at a pretty high level, and just switched my passion over to teaching people the next up, if you will, or people that are new to sales, how to take the winning shot, how to close more deals. And so we've built a company, Closers Media, around that. Today, I lead that virtual performance sales coaching team, and I'm proud to do so with a fantastic team. Our guest today, who's the star of the show, his name is Darin Lynch. If you don't know who he is, as an individual, Fast 50, 40 under 40, he's in a magazine, a news every other week. The guy is a big deal in our town because of numerous things, but mainly because, you know, if you ask his Titans, his Irish Titans, as they're known, what he's known for is building and growing one of the most celebrated, best places to work year over year sales cultures in the land. Please, closers, put your hands together and give a warm Coffee and Closers welcome to Darin Lynch. There he is.
Hi, Nikolai. How are you?
Wonderful, sir. How are you?
Good. Thanks for that introduction. A lot of unnecessary compliments in there. You know how to make it work.
You know, only half. I mean, half of them were true. So, you know, we'll just let the audience pick. No, you know my my appreciation for you goes a long while back, and having you finally on the show, you know, is a treat. So welcome, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Now, you know that we prepped a little bit, but I did not invite you. This is usually just a one-on-one show, so I don't know who you invited there behind you, but could they get off camera? Would that be okay? Or do you just want to introduce them?
They're stationary. They can't move.
All right, fair enough. We'll let it slide. Hey man, I think everyone's dying to know. So I kind of ripped through your, your success and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about failure. Don't worry, that's one of the parts of the show. But I'd love to kind of get your story, man. Your sales story, your personal story. Let us have it. I'd love for the audience to know a little bit more about Darin Lynch.
Sure. I guess I'll start with my background. So I grew up in a small town in Iowa on a farm. Nashua is the name of my hometown. There were about 1,800 people at the time. So when I say small town, I mean small town. Had 59 people in my class, 61 if you count the 2 foreign exchange students. And I'm not sure what the hell they did to get excommunicated to my hometown from Germany and Norway. Great hometown. Grew up enjoying it. My dad was a farmer. My mom was one of the high school teachers and an English professor at Wartburg College, if anybody recognizes that. Went to University of Iowa and was a computer science major at first, and didn't really like it, not necessarily because I was the next Bill Gates, but it just didn't really trip my trigger. So I switched over to MIS, which is kind of computer science light, through the business school and corporate finance double major. Proud Hawkeye. So I'm sure we have some Gophers on here, which is fine. You guys aren't even really a rival yet. You got to win a few games before we'll actually be a rival. I love the "We Hate Iowa" cheers when you're not even playing us. But after Iowa, I went to Principal Financial Group. I got into a corporate IT background, and I'll kind of speed through this. I know this isn't really the point of it, but I have an atypical origin story. I'm a comic book fan, so I like to say origin story. So I have an atypical origin story for a digital agency founder, because most founders are either designers or developers, sometimes maybe a marketer, or they're at an agency and leave and take a book of business with them. I came out of a corporate IT kind of background. I was at Principal Financial Group. Then I moved up here 20 some years ago, and worked for a Lawson software consulting company. That's where I first started getting into e-commerce. So by e-commerce standards, I'm a dinosaur. So it was late 90s. Then Wilson's Leather, and then Second Swing Golf was the last job I had before starting Irish Titan. I was at Second Swing when Tiger was kind of exploding on the scene. So there was a lot of good mojo. And then I started Irish Titan. Just to preempt a possible question, one of the reasons I get sometimes is why I started Irish Titan. And Second Swing filed bankruptcy the last year I was there, which was super frustrating because we had built a really profitable e-commerce channel pretty quickly. And so it was frustrating for me to be on the executive team and still have a company fail, because we actually grew too quickly on the bricks and mortar side. So when the receivership stepped in, they kept the CFO to handle the bank account. They kept me to handle everything else. So for about 6 months, I wound down all of our stores, liquidated our inventory, negotiated payables, kept the employees that we needed, tried to maintain spirit. And when I walked out that last day and literally shut the lights off, that's when I decided I was going to start Irish Titan, because I was going to succeed or fail on my own merits from that point forward, and figured out, jump off the cliff and make the net on my way down.
And I'd say it worked out.
More days than not.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I have some questions, but I have one selfishly, because I'm a huge comic book fan. So origin story, I mean, come on, X-Men. If you were to say, what would you or other people say is your superpower? If you were, you know, a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Well, I'm DC, not Marvel, all the way.
Me too. But
yeah.
You got to admit, the origin stories on that. Okay, I'll just.
Right. And I'm a Batman guy who has no superpowers, really. So I guess I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if my sales power would be, I don't think it would be sales, because I'm really not a classically trained salesperson. It feels a little self-important to say something like culture or leadership. It might just be authenticity. You know, I don't cut my hair. I wear a lot of green. Everything green's a write-off. I'm just joking, IRS, if you're listening. Maybe it's authenticity. So I'm just going to do the things that I feel are the things, whether it's business or outside of business, that are the way I want to do them more often than not, and that seems to work out.
Right on. Well, with that, you know, as far as, you know, being authentic is, you know, and I'm not trying to gush on you. I'm hoping this comes in the questions more about your office and that whole deal. But this episode is called, you know, Sell Like a Titan. And as we put in the description, it's all around leadership, right? And you're known for incredible culture, man. You know, can you kind of help us get our minds around, and feel free to tell the magician story wherever you want to go with this culture thing, because I don't know anyone personally that celebrates culture so much. And by celebrate, it isn't a news clip. You don't do it for the fame. You do it because you really do care about your Titans. The fact you even have a subculture in your company called you Titans is incredible. So where did this culture come from? Like, how do you do it? And how do you keep people engaged, drinking the Kool-Aid, and motivated, especially during a time like now?
Yeah, I think that couple of answers come to mind when I think about that and where the culture came from. I think, first of all, the culture really is to some degree a manifestation of me. I think when you're a founder-led company still,
yeah,
as the founder goes, the culture goes, and as the culture goes, the company goes.
Gotcha.
And so I think that a lot of our culture is driven by me, and at first it was more accidental. I do a whole bunch of things without thinking ahead. And then later, I either realize, oh, that was dumb and I better not do that again, or later I realize that worked out, and I start to figure out, well, why did that work out?
Yeah.
And so at first, I think our culture was a little bit more, well, a lot more unintentional than it is now. But looking back, there were a few milestones that I think started to put some structure around that. First were our cultural values, because I read this long ago leaked internal Amazon deck that was sort of a cultural deck about, and this was probably 2010, 2011, something like that.
Oh, wow.
And so around there. And so it talked about some of their values. And that started to give me a framework to figure out, okay, well, I need to start doing that too, because we had started to grow and I wanted to put some guardrails up. So that's when we figured out our internal values. We went through one iteration, which I'll spare the time right now, and ended up with the same values now for a long, long time. And it's POTUS, which is not political, stands for passion, ownership, teamwork, impact, and skills. And the only thing that changed from the original version, we had a W for work ethic instead of I for impact. So I never said it the same because there was no pronounceable acronym there. Then we changed work ethic to impact for some certain reasons when it became POTUS. Then the second, I think, milestone really was when I saw Simon Sinek speak in person in a small group setting. And I know the specific date there. That was June 15th, 2011. And
what was that like? It's incredible.
It was incredible. If I were the type of person who would say, oh, it changed my life, I would say it changed my life. Because he talked about his golden circle, and we had our golden circle in like 2 or 3 minutes, because our why was business first, online second. I had already trademarked that. Our how was partnerships, not transactions. Those two remain consistent this day. And we'll talk a little bit more about partnerships, I'm guessing. Our how at that time, I think, was e-commerce and complex websites with a focus on user experience. Then it's evolved over time. I think we were on a third iteration there, which he talks about, right? That your what can change over time as long as your why and your how are solid. So I think those two milestones were what put a lot of structure around our culture, because the philosophy I had going into that was based on Guy Kawasaki, another one of my favorite authors. I like that he is really conversational. He's easy to read, but obviously incredibly insightful. And he swears a little bit in his books and stuff. So I like that. Feels comfortable. And one of the things he talks about is don't worry about your culture. Don't worry about your brand. Build a product or a service that people are buying. And then your brand and your culture will take some shape as you go along. So I read that before starting Irish Titan, and that for some reason really impacted me, which is why our culture became more clarified over time rather than starting with the definition around it. I think that one of the things about our culture now is we have a lot of traditions, and I want us to work hard and have fun while we're working, right? Like, I don't want to schedule fun for us. I don't want to schedule a happy hour and that's when we have fun. I want us having fun while we're working. That's sort of effortless performance.
Yeah.
And so our culture really, it has a lot of traditions to try to help with that. And our culture has a lot of guardrails to try to promote performance. So I think one of the benefits is we can talk about 2 lighthouses that define our culture. Our golden circle, which is the business first, online second. I think I might have it drawn here. Probably can't see very well, but it's right here. Business first, online second, and partnerships, not transactions. And then POTUS. And those are part of our hiring process. They're part of our review process. They're part of our daily process and how we do our work. So that keeps everybody on the rails and sort of self-policing. And then we have, when new Titans are hired, at their first monthly company meeting, everybody does, it's called their high school fight song performance, but it's taken on a different nature where it doesn't have to be their high school fight song if they don't know, but everybody does a performance. It's just one of the ways that you become part of the team. And we work to make sure people aren't nervous and don't feel like they're being hazed. You know, it's not like hazing, but it's just part of the performance. And my all-time favorite was a few months ago, one of our new hires, Michelle O'Connor, did entirely original lyrics to a Beastie Boys song about her growing up. It was incredible. So it just becomes really memorable. We have an annual client partner appreciation event in March. We have an internal St. Patrick's Day party around St. Patrick's Day that we call St. Titans Day. At everybody's 1-year anniversary, they get an Irish Titan rugby with their jersey number on it, etc. So those are some of the things that we do to police the performance side of it, and then also reward some of the fun of it.
I hope, well, we're recording this. I actually don't have to take notes anymore. That was incredible. So I don't want to talk specifically about your industry, although it's your industry, so you can go there. But like, so we're a team of 6, so we're growing, right? And I'm guessing if you're tuning into this episode in particular, either you're a big fan of Darins, or you're probably also trying to navigate and figure out how to build a team and so on. What's something maybe in your space, or let's just talk about people that in leadership. What are some that people should be starting to do right now? Like, what can they learn from that, and what should they be doing right now?
I think that in terms of what to do right now, it's an odd time right now, right? Like, if you're talking literally right now during the pandemic, it's sort of an odd time. There's a lot of what I've been referring to as float, because it's a little hard to push certain things forward right now. I think there's so much unknown that some people are understandably a little reluctant to make decisions. I think that sometimes people are waiting for something to happen tomorrow because they think something's going to happen tomorrow to make things better. So I think something that people can do right now is stop waiting. That's one of the things that over the last few weeks, I've really tried to think every day or take to heart every day, because I have been prioritizing taking care of our Titans during these times, because we had everybody in the office. And now we have some people coming in the office. That's a whole different topic. We have allowed, excuse me, I almost knocked my computer over.
We suggest no kicking of the computers during the show, but you're free to do whatever, man. You're the boss.
I'm not very flexible. And so now it's time to shift back to pushing some strategic initiatives forward. So I think stop waiting is something that people can do right now, because we don't know when a vaccine is going to happen. We don't know when it's going to be under control, so to speak. So I think we need to start pushing, focusing more professionally here than personally, but I think there's some blend there, pushing forward with how we're going to cope with things and push our businesses forward, push ourselves forward, et cetera. So that's really the thing that comes to mind. I think that webinars, Zooms, social has become even more important right now, right? Like we're all sometimes numb to that, except for those events that stand out. Like you guys do a great production here. You do a great job promoting and creating awareness. Those are the sorts of events that stand out right now in these virtual times. So I think a strong social presence is important. And if you're going to do those events, you need to stand out and you need to avoid making people numb.
That's awesome, man. All right, so I'm going to flip the script on that one. So something we love to do in this show is celebrate failures. In sales, we're in the business here and no, right? So it's really a business of failing if you think about it. And it's those wins in between that keep us alive. What do you think, like, do you have like maybe a hiring or a leadership failure that you've committed to follow on that you learned from? And maybe those of us that find ourselves in a leadership position now could learn from, basically, don't do this.
Yeah.
We talk about what we should do. What shouldn't we do?
Yeah, I think that I would classify all of our failures as my failures and or leadership failures. I'm not trying to be a martyr when I say that. I'm just saying that, for example, hiring failures, that's ultimately my responsibility, right? We've had some people who haven't worked out, but I should have been more insightful in the questions that I asked, or maybe listen to that little voice in my head saying, I'm not sure if this is going to work out. There's something kind of holding me back, but maybe I was in a rush and I was moving too quickly and move forward, right? So I think that I really take responsibility for any of those failures along the way. We went through a number of iterations, for example, of our management team. And a lot of the people who were on different iterations of that management team were people I still think incredibly highly of and have good relationships with. And the management team at that time may not have worked because I wasn't investing enough time in coaching them, because maybe it was their first exposure to management and leadership, which are two different concepts. Management and leadership are two different things. But maybe I didn't spend enough time coaching them on that. Or maybe I wasn't clear enough in my expectations, right? One of the things that is beautiful about our business now is I have a management team that I can lean on and trust, and we work really well together with a lot of transparency and accountability. And I think that that's a function of both where those people are in their careers on the management team and I learned from my past mistakes. To give you a little bit more specific answer though, that was just a little bit more of my philosophy of taking accountability for it myself.
That's a learned lesson right there, man. A lot of people want to punt it to someone else. That's not leadership.
It's especially my fault, right? Because everybody else can leave. I'm terminally unemployable now, right? Like if somebody were to hire me somewhere, their head should be examined. And so I have to make
taken.
So anything that, any mistakes that we encounter or battles that we lose are ultimately my responsibility. And so I've really learned, I think all of my mistakes fall into one of two categories, really, because there's plenty of mistakes. I think entrepreneurship is about the second and third decisions that you make, because the first is often wrong, right? It's about being wrong until you're right. So I'm not worried about the little mistakes. I think that the theme of the mistakes I've made fall into one of two camps. Either I've been I'm incredibly stubborn. And so I've been too stubborn to punt on some bad projects, some bad prospects, and some bad clients. And for example, we've had projects where we've been using new technology that just got upgraded or new platforms released, and some of the projects became a nightmare. And some of that would be on us, but some of it was the technology. And instead of punting and saying, guys, we can't finish this, I would say, we're going to finish this goddamn project. We don't quit before we finish. We're going to launch this. And I start committing, bad money after good money sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Second mistake is the people who bleed green. I've given enough rope sometimes for them to hang themselves rather than just enough rope to swing to the next tree. And so those are really the themes of all the mistakes that I've made of major consequence.
Oh, it was really cool to learn from those mistakes. I mean, I haven't made one yet in my professional career, so now I get to live vicariously through you. I'm just kidding, man. It's so refreshing when someone actually goes there. We haven't had a guest really punt on that question yet, but it's really nice to hear success stories like you, because that's really, unless you do something illegal, there's no press on that failure right there, on what you learned from that experience. Do you know what I mean? So yep. We want to put it on here. So this is a sales show, so I want to get over there. Sales and marketing. So you're a digital agency. So arguably let's just put you on the marketing side of things. We are a sales company, right? So we pair up with a ton of marketing, especially lead gen, or, those kind of companies that kind of get you kind of an SQL or MQL, and our coaches will get in there and help close, right? That's because we couldn't I've never worked in a place where sales and marketing had a really symbiotic, kumbaya relationship. I would love to hear kind of, how do you guys make money? How do you sell? You're talking about channel partners. And so I want to kind of see how you guys view sales, but I also would love to hear how you keep the peace, and how, any advice you can give us on how sales and marketing can work together collectively.
Yeah. So let's see. So I'm not as worried about keeping the peace as I am about creating healthy tension, right? Like, I'm not from Minnesota, so I don't suffer from Minnesota nice. And I'm an honesty over harmony kind of guy. So I want healthy tension between different disciplines. On the delivery side of our business, I want healthy tension between, for example, project management and development, right? Kind of pushing each other to get better. I want healthy tension between marketing and sales and delivery, so that they're pushing each other. In terms of marketing and sales, I think that, one of the things that I learned from a guy at a speaking gig one time is all businesses go through 3 stages in their life cycle. At first, you're everything to everybody, because you need a check to keep the lights on.
Right.
Second phase is you're something for everybody, because you're starting to know what you do, but not necessarily zeroing in on who you do it for. And the third phase is you're something for somebody. What you do and who you do it for. So everything to everybody, something for everybody, something for somebody. And I think in that first phase, sales is the end all be all, because you can market all day if you want, but nobody buys marketing, right? That isn't what brings in a check. Sales is what brings in a check. If you want to start to build a scalable organization though, you need a combination of marketing and sales, because I think a salesperson will tell you that it is a hell of a lot easier to sell if there is existing awareness of your product, your service, solution, hopefully positive awareness. But really, I think it's unfortunate that the phrase it has evolved where in general people say sales and marketing instead of saying marketing and sales, because marketing comes first. Marketing creates awareness, sales converts awareness. And so we, I think, actually have invested more in the marketing side of things than what people would traditionally call the sales sides of things. And we've done that so that when we've invested in sales, they've been more successful and able to be held more accountable, because we're removing that crutch where they might be able to say, well, nobody knows about us. We don't have marketing materials. What are we doing to create awareness? What are we doing to create marketing qualified leads? You know, MQLs to talk specifics. So I have a pretty strong opinion about a lot of things, but marketing and sales need to work together if you're going to have an organization of any size. And I think you yourself are a more classically trained salesperson by far than am I. And so I won't really get into prospecting and qualification and funnel kind of stuff unless you take me there. But one thing that we've done that is different, I think, than many, if not most, is we have a really well-defined partner channel where we really specialize in e-commerce. And so we have a lot of partners with some names that people might recognize just to give us an anchor in the conversation. Magento, Shopify, BigCommerce are the three platforms we work with the most. So we work closely with them and other partners with bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly cadence with calls and account mapping. We do a lot of activities with these partners that would bleed between marketing and sales, where we're doing webinars or creating co-marketed content and then doing co-selling with them. And that channel, that partner channel, has been extremely valuable for us. If we wanted to stay our current size, I don't think I would build out what would be traditionally defined as a sales practice much more than we have now, because our partner channel works really well. Forward momentum creates forward momentum, and we have that there. And it's taken a long time, and there's a lot of structure and intention to it. But that is really the bridge between our marketing efforts and our sales efforts. So does that help a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we had this conversation before, and something that I never had the chance to have any say in when I worked for the big companies that I worked for over the years, right? But here we get the chance to try everything. And something, since we've been beta testing our performance coaching and our playbook and all our new offerings we're coming out with, we have learned, so I want to make a stance, and then I want to hear, my stance is I totally agree with you that awareness makes sales easier. One thing that we have found in beta testing these offerings that we needed to do something about was sales needs to inform marketing on what is happening in real time in the market versus marketing informing sales about what they need to say. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing more live than right now, than every call, every no, every objection, everything that you hear. That's my stance. I would love to hear a stance that you have. Maybe it's against that one, but something where it seems like industry norm, right? Around the sales and marketing topic that you just completely disagree with.
You know, I think that I tend to disagree. So this will probably be a total red light right now. I tend to disagree with the notion of classically trained salespeople. I think
Yes,
people can sell or not to some degree. One of my friends is a very successful sales guy, and now I know you could say, well, this is just an exception, but he hasn't read a lot of the books, doesn't do a good job with his numbers and following process, but what he's really good at is he doesn't sell. Nobody wants to be sold to, right? Customers don't, you don't sell to customers. They look for help. They look for education. They look for someone who can help them create opportunity. And he is great at listening to them and not selling them.
yes.
And so I think you could send someone to classical sales training all day long, but if they don't have those right EQ characteristics where they're going to listen to the prospect where they're going to not sell them, then they're not going to be salespeople. I had people telling me for a long time growing up in my hometown and in college and early in my career, Lynch, you got to go into sales. Like, you would be great at sales. And I was completely resistant to it for a long, long time, because to me, sales was the used car salesman. I didn't realize that seeing the guy sitting on the bed of the truck with my dad that was bringing a seed corn out, sharing a beer, I didn't really realize that that was also sales, right? Like, that guy was selling my dad's seed corn, but to me, that was someone that would sit there and bullshit with my dad and helped him, right? Because he would help dad get the right kind of seed corn that year for what the weather conditions might be, et cetera. So it wasn't until I started to make some peace with that I started to embrace quote unquote selling. And so I think the thing I would disagree with is the sometimes the value of classical sales training, which is probably something you're not going to like to hear.
Well, no, I disagree with you, but not on 100%. Like, so here's what I'll tell you. So, you know, our coaching, it works and it teaches people, but we're working alongside them. And here's one thing where I agree is, you can learn sales motions, right? But I don't know if it's this podcast or I don't know, something we did lately where I wrote something with that, because I've learned this, is you can teach people sales motions. You cannot teach the 3 or 4 required skills to be successful at sales, which is successful salespeople have to have empathy. They have to care, and they have to like listening. You know what I mean? And then whether it's their product or just in general as their human core, they really like to help people. You know what I mean? Forget their product. They just, in their free time, they like to help people, right? And then they keep their promises, right? They keep their promises. They say they're going to do this thing, and they do that. They listen to your pain or your, you know, whatever you're going through. And if they have a solve, they want to help you, right? And then you can teach them those other things. So that's where I agree and disagree with is I think anyone can learn the motions, but you can't teach someone to be a good person. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're either a good person or not. You can't train someone to be a decent person, right?
Totally agree. It's sort of like you asked earlier in culture, and I skipped over this, but I think that you asked, you know, how do you motivate people? And I don't think you can motivate people. I think people are either motivated or not. It's not my job to motivate someone.
Yeah.
Right? My job to create an environment where they bring their talents to bear. I'm a big fan of this whiteboard video that's based on the book Drive by Daniel Pink. And it talks about 3 things: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And it's my job to create a culture and a go-to-market at Irish Titan where people feel that and they're motivated themselves to pursue that, right? Because I feel, and this isn't a platitude, I feel incredibly fortunate because I feel like I don't have a job. There are certain days that are better than others.
Yeah.
It's been a long, long time, probably from around when I saw Simon Sinek, actually, that it's been a long time since I felt like I had a job. And so I take that very seriously. And I take the appreciation for that very seriously. And I want to create an environment where those who are choosing to bleed green in our culture, right? They are signed up for Business First Online Second, for Partnerships Not Transactions. POTUS isn't up here, I guess, but they live POTUS, right? Those are the people then that they're motivated on their own. And so I think that there are just certain things that you can't teach. You need to unleash. And that's what we're, I think, all trying to do in our careers, are find those gifts that we have that we can just unleash every day without feeling like we're going to work.
Darin, I have one more question with you on the, on the coaching front, because I'm with you. I think what you're talking about as far as classically trained, that's training. We don't do that. You know what I mean? Coaching to me is sitting side by side, learning by doing, right? And the people that invest in this tend to be good people, right? But I love that. Like, we're saying the same thing. I never heard the motivation thing though. We always focus on, here's the 4 core things you need to have to be good at sales, which are all intangibles, right? I've never heard the pairing with the motivation. That's cool. So I hope someone asks that question. Here's my last question to you though. Yep. On the, on the coaching platform, coaching up, right? Who in your life, whether it was a mentor or someone you grew up with, is someone that you feel coached you up to kind of be the legend that you are? So someone that taught you something, and what is it, right? That that kind of brought you to where you are today, and what can you share?
Well, let's check some of those that vocabulary at the door. We don't
I
need
thought I was going to get away with that, but okay.
right. We don't need to put all that pressure on me. As far as mentors and people who've inspired me, there really is a long list. I think my mom and dad inspired me a lot. My dad started his farm from scratch. Most farms of size, has a pretty good sized farm, our family farms, multi-generation. And he came back from the military, got a loan for 40 acres and built it out from there. I didn't realize growing up that that it's as entrepreneurial and business focused as I realized later in life. I remember in second grade, I'd fill out the sheet, what do my mom and dad do, like what I'll do when we're in elementary, and what's your dad's job? And I wrote, he doesn't have a job, he's a farmer. And so that inspired me. My mom inspired me with how she can deal with people. Not that dad's bad with people, but each have different gifts.
Sure.
My first boss is probably still the best boss I've ever had. His name's Jeff Wiley. He didn't even have a college education and went to West Point for a while to prove to his parents that he could get in. And I learned an incredible amount from him. He was the first person that really started talking about the differences between leadership and management. And he taught me about the value in knowing who you're working with rather than the name on the shingle. So from that point forward, I really interviewed the people I'd be working with and for, more so than thinking about the company I was working for. So I had a string of good bosses. I think a couple of people recently have had a really sizable impact on me. A gentleman named Mark Cohn, I think, is someone who helped put some polish on some of my rough edges. I still have plenty of rough edges, but he helped me, I think, put a little bit more sophistication around some of the things I was trying to accomplish. Nancy Dahl is a lady that I met a couple of years ago through our shared board membership at the United Way here in town. And I learned an incredible amount from her. They've all inspired me. I think that one of the lessons I learned a long time ago from one person, and this ties back to some of the sales things, I think that one of the things we've done well is we picked the right pond, right? Everybody always says you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond. Well, I think it's more important to pick the right pond. And so we picked the right pond with not just being a digital agency, but really focusing on e-commerce. And so there are lessons like that I've learned from people along the way that sit with me every day. Like those sayings, I keep in an Evernote file that I read every week. And those are what really helped me see that true north, if you want to use that analogy, all because of these people that have inspired me. And I'm leaving people like Magic Johnson, right, who I've never met, but there are certain celebrities and cultural icons maybe that we all have, could be someone else, but that also provides some inspiration, to be quite honest.
Well, and like a clean living legend, Gene Simmons, I know, is a hero of yours, right? So
right. Hey, never drank or done drugs, right? A good role model.
Yeah. Hey, I hate to do this, but I know that closers are hitting up the chat line right now, so I gotta cut this. For our online listeners or people that are listening to this recording, thank you guys for joining us. Darin, thank you, man. Thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for all these nuggets. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mikolai. This is the most fun I had with you since we went and saw Sting, our favorite wrestler.
That is one of my favorite stories of all time. That for you folks in the chat line. If Darin can hang out afterwards, we got to tell that one. The best happy accident ever. Thanks for listening. Check out closermedia.com to hear this recording. Hop on our newsletter to stay in touch of all the events we're doing. And don't forget to check out the new site, which will launch at the end of this month. And we'll have a couple of these platforms and products that we're really excited to bring to our community. Thanks for joining. Cheers. All right. So what do we think? What'd you learn? Well, if you like that, check out coffeeclosers.com for upcoming episodes, recordings, and more. And don't forget to check out our sponsors. Each one has been hand-selected. They are best in class. Until next time, we'll see you at the next Coffee and Closers. Cheers.
Live, come on, live a life we love. Gotta live, I said live a life we love.